Rankle swaggered into the clearing, approaching a throne constructed of mossy rocks and red gold leaves. Another fairy began to recite the words to the coronation ceremony before Rankle interrupted him, asking where his crown was. They were going to make him king, and his crown was a tiara made of acorns and glass shards. The crown hurt, but he sat down on his throne and looked out to his subjects. All 3 of them. His favorite, Mags, whipped out her knife and cut a rope attached to a net hidden in the leaves. His subjects howled with laughter as he hung, dangling in the air. They told him they didn't want him there, that he was too mean. He had put bees in Orla's mouth while she was sleeping, but he hadn't realized that was mean. He'd sewn Pfeiffer's mouth shut, but he was fine now. He wouldn't shut up. Rankle wouldn't go. This was his glade. He only let the others stay there because he was so nice. They made him promise to leave before they let him down. He had no choice but to agree. However, when they cut the net, Rankle headbutted Mags with his tiara, which turned into an all-out brawl between the 4 of them. In an effort to keep him down, they accidentally drove a stick through Rankle's wing. Normally when they fought, nobody got hurt permanently, but maybe this would change their minds about letting him stay. The answer was still no, so he stomped out of the glade with his crumpled wing. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Ether Hub. I'm Simon, bringing you more Magic the Gathering lore. Today we continue the story of March of the Machine, the latest set of MTG which sees the corruption of the Phyrexians spill over the entirety of the multiverse. In our latest video, which you can find linked on your screen right now or in the description below, we visited the dark plane of Innistrad. Though our attentions were drawn to the moon and its Eldrazi prisoner, the people of Innistrad stood against the endless tides of Phyrexians. Gissa and her brother Giraffe banded together to stitch and summon the worst undead the plane had ever seen, all in its common defense. Now we travel to the plane of Eldraine, a storybook world of whimsy and charms, but even so, it isn't immune to the blight that comes for all of us. Phyrexia now invades the denizens of Eldraine. If you're enjoying these videos, consider showing your support by leaving a like, becoming a subscriber or member of the channel, dropping a super thanks, and sharing it with friends. Now let's continue with Chapter 10 of March of the Machine's story, Eldraine, The Adventures of Rankle, Master of Love. Written by Jenna Helland. Rankle stalked his way to the cart roads of the boundary lands between the wilds of the Fey folk and the realm of humans. He didn't know much about humans, but he still considered himself an expert. You needed money if you wanted friends. His spirits brightened as he formed a plan to rob the very first person he met. He found his mark. On a rock at the crossroads outside the village stood a blue-cloaked, white-haired man with a beard. As Rankle got closer, he saw more humans gathered around him. He was trying to convince them that a symbol on a leaf and the ominous sky were signs of something terrible. Some called him Tulane, but most called him a fool, and the youth of the village threw rocks at the old man. Tulane jumped down from the rock and hurried toward the village. Rankle followed him in pursuit of the coin purse on his belt. With an injured wing, Rankle ran as fast as he could behind Tulane, the clink of the coin purse muffling his ravings about telling the queen something. Rankle climbed up the hillside, hoping to ambush the man, but the sight of Castle Lochwain stopped him. Coming from the floating castle was a royal procession marching up the hillside toward them. Knights in black and gold escorted Queen Ayara's carriage, and Rankle snuck closer to Tulane for a better look. He had long admired the queen. She was known to be cunning and fierce, just like him. She had survived many husbands and was looking for suitors to match her regal intelligence. As the procession approached, Tulane jumped out in front, asking to speak with the queen. Rankle ducked under the carriage and watched Queen Ayara step onto the road, asking what Tulane wanted. He warned her that the skies would open up to unimaginable horrors, beasts that would rain down on them. Queen Ayara knew him to be a storyteller, but still invited him into her carriage to tell him everything. As they turned, Rankle caught a glimpse of her face. He couldn't think. He couldn't breathe. Rankle was smitten. He knew what he had to do, become her next husband. The carriage rolled on, taking the beautiful queen with it, leaving strange black streaks in its wake. Rankle skipped down the lane towards the village of Edgewall, singing a song in his heart. He had never looked for a mate, but he considered himself an expert in matters of the heart. He needed magic, a love, charm, potion, or spell. He needed a witch. The village streets were deserted, the shops shut up. The creaking sign of the Three Pigs butcher shop was the only sound. On his way to the charm shop, Rankle saw a parade of thousands of rats marching out of the gutter, scurrying up the walls of the shops, to sit on the roof and watch the sky. It was strange behavior for them to be watching the red, swirling smog in the sky. It was a day for strange magic, and Rankle needed strange magic of his own. He shrugged and walked into the shop, asking for a love potion, but the shop seemed empty. A disembodied voice barked at him. Couldn't he see they were busy? He couldn't see them at all. So he grabbed a large bottle of mysterious liquid and began smashing them on the floor. This drew the shopkeeper out. A very irritated old woman stood over him. He told the witch he needed a love potion, because he needed to marry Queen Ayara. The witch rolled her eyes and told him that love potions were creepy, and they had bigger problems. Rankle continued to smash bottles until he was whisked into the air. The witch told him she was leaving to rendezvous with his taller, less unruly kin. She invited Rankle along with her. They were joining forces to fight the oncoming doom. Rankle was tired of dangling in the air, immobilized, and she couldn't tell him what to do anyway. She gave him a second choice, to go on a quest to find a special love flower to win Ayara's heart forever. Of course, he chose the love flower, and the witch released her spell, letting him tumble to the floor. Rankle followed the witch's directions, but there were no flowers in this part of the forest. The witch had sent him on a fool's errand, for reasons he could not fathom. He abandoned his search and headed back to Edgewall, dejected. A herd of elk burst from the thicket, sending him hop-fluttering onto a low branch to get away. A strange creature lurched into the clearing after them, a beast with white spikes and glowing red ribs, 3 tails and no eyes, but it took the shape of a dog. He liked puppies, so he hopped down to greet it. But as he approached, the spines on its back unfolded, and one of its tails lashed out at him. Rankle flit and dodged, scolding the bad puppy, avoiding its slobbering jaws. The dog backed him against a tree, and Rankle threw incantations, grubs, and rocks to no avail. He closed his eyes, ready for the end, but heard a mechanical yelp. He opened his eyes to see a red-bearded dwarf yanking his axe out of the beast. Rankle, distracted by a shiny ring on his finger, barely heard him say more beasts were on the way. Strange creatures chittered from the unnaturally black and foul night. Worst of all, the dwarf, Torbran, Thane of something or other, would not shut up about a really mean tree and evil sea pods. They found a cave on a cliff to spend the night, and they got comfortable while the dwarf told him about the courts falling and the High King and Queen, Kenrith, being gone. He had a plan, and he needed Rankle's help, and since his plan involved going to Lochwain, Rankle agreed. As they slept, noises like a lowering drawbridge, followed by screams, echoed across the valley. Torbran had laid traps around their camp to keep them safe. Rankle surveyed the cliffside just before dawn, looking out to Castle Lochwain's floating spires. There were some very strange beanstalks coming from the sky, but that was inconsequential. He needed to steal the dwarf's ring and use it to propose to Queen Ayara. He crept closer to Torbran and sprinkled some fairy dust on the ring, then muttered an incantation that turned it into a caterpillar. The caterpillar inched off Torbran's finger towards Rankle, but then the dwarf woke, immediately noticing his ring was gone. Rankle scooped up the caterpillar as Torbran frantically searched. His panic confirmed Rankle's suspicion that this might not just be a plain old shiny ring, but a shiny magical ring. Rankle licked the caterpillar to remove the magical dust, and Torbran was shocked to see that the fairy had stolen it. Torbran lunged at him. He needed the ring to fight against those who violated their home. This was probably a wishing ring. Rankle wondered if he could wish Ayara to him. But Torbran couldn't believe he was thinking of Ayara while abominations overrun the courts. Abominations was a bit of a mean way to describe Rankle's future subjects. Torbran warned him that everything would be destroyed if he did not get his ring back. Rankle reluctantly held out the ring, not wanting his precious Ayara to be destroyed. He wished for a love potion that appeared in his hand and ran. The dwarf tore after him, upset that there was only one wish left. As they reached the castle, the valley clouds dispersed, stopping them in their tracks. Castle Lochwain was no longer hovering, but crashed to the ground. The strange metallic beanstalks writhed in the sky above. Legions of Lochwain knights stood in formation, their armor embedded into their bodies, which were now covered in sinew and white spikes. Flocks of those strange dogs surrounded grim carriages of bone and flesh. A trumpet sounded, announcing the queen. And as she stepped outside, they were shocked to see she was not herself. There were dark plates and glowing embers where her flesh had been. Spikes jutted out of her face and arms. Rankle glanced at the love potion in his hands. Perhaps he had been too hasty in his affections. The ground rumbled beneath their feet, and Torbrand told Rankle a great chasm would open up and they would need to lure the abominations into it. Rankle looked from Queen Ayara to Torbrand, who insisted he needed the ring to save the plane. Rankle held out the ring in his hand, then wished for it to rain love potion. The skies opened up and drops of pink began to fall on their heads. Rankle shouted to all the twisted abominations to behold their king, hopping to the edge of the opening chasm. Under the influence of the love potion downpour, they were instantly smitten with the Fae. Rankle let himself fall back into the chasm, and the entire legion chittered towards the object of their heart's desire. Metal and sinew poured over the edge while Rankle struggled to fly out of the reach, flapping his injured wing. A beautiful, ancient sound competed with the metallic screeches of adoration. Rankle realized he was getting sleepy, and sank toward the pile of bodies below. This must be part of Torbrand's plan, but he didn't care at all. He never felt so loved as he drifted down onto the throne of admirers. And that's going to do it for today's video, guys. Say what you will, but this was a rather enjoyable romp in the midst of the multiverse collapsing around us, if I do say so myself. I love the focus on two side characters from the Eldraine world, Rankle, this fairy prankster, and Ayara, the elf noble who literally goes through husbands like they're Chinese takeout. We say our goodbyes to the likes of Ayara, completed by the host of Phyrexians, as well as the great storyteller, Chulain, who was probably completed when he had a meeting with Queen Ayara. But what I most want to know is, where the heck is the shirtless daddy himself? Where is my Oko? I know he was severely wounded by Garrick last time he was here, but come on. Doesn't he want to pull some shenanigans while Eldraine burns? And while it's funny to think that Rankle was actually the savior of the plane by making all the Phyrexians fall in love with him and follow him into a chasm, the real important bit is that we get the line we all expected. The Kenriths are gone. This was spoiled a bit ago with some art previewing the aftermath of March of the Machine, titled Aftermath. So this is how the Elder King and Queen Kenriths fall, leaving their kids to possibly return and carry on the noble line. Anyway guys, that's going to do it. If you enjoyed the video, consider supporting it with a like, becoming a subscriber or a member of the channel, leaving a super thanks, and sharing it with your friends. It all goes a long way in helping the community grow. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time guys, see ya!